On the 1st of January 2021, around 10 o'clock Central Europe time, in the village of Tribistovo, near the town of Posuze, Bosnia and Herzegovina, 8 teenagers, 4 males and 4 females of Herzegovinian Croat ethnicity were found dead in a holiday cottage after a New Year's Eve celebration. The cause of death was determined as suffocation from carbon monoxide poisoning, instigated by a power generator used to heat the cottage. The tragedy received widespread media coverage from many local and international outlets, prompting a national day of mourning on the 2nd of January, while the government of the West Herzegovina canton declared 3 days of mourning from 2 to 4 January. The government of Croatia declared a national day of mourning on the 5th of January. The victims' funerals were attended by thousands of citizens from both countries. The victims, all of whom were aged 19 and from the municipality of Posuze, organized a private New Year's Eve celebrations at a cottage in the village of Tribistovo. They gathered at the foot of Mt. Radovan near Blidinje Nature Park, where they met up with a larger group of friends. Family and friends kept in touch with the victims until around 4 o'clock Central Europe time, when they ceased to respond to further calls and messages. Around that time, the 8 victims separated from the rest of the group and went to a different cottage to spend the night. Due to a lack of electricity, they used a power generator for internal heating. The generator was situated in an adjacent room separated by a window which was left open by one of the victims before falling asleep. Around 10 o'clock Central Europe time, occupants and residents of nearby homes noticed that nobody had yet left the cottage. After receiving no answer at the door and noticing that the generator was still running, they forced entry by breaking one of the windows. The victims were found unconscious on the floor, some in an upright sitting position. Upon realizing that they had no pulse, the residents immediately called the emergency services, who could do nothing but to declare death upon arrival. After the scene was investigated, the bodies were sent for an autopsy at the clinical hospital Mostar. All 8 of the victims were ethnic Herzegovinian Croats born in 2001. They were identified as Jukic and Rezo were buried on the 3rd of January in the Martika Križ cemetery in Posuze. A day later, the remaining 6 victims were buried in 3 different graveyards in Rakitno Ivanovica Cemetery, Petrovica Cemetery and Stechi Cemetery in a ceremony led by Bishop of Mostar Davno Petar Palik. The municipality mayor of Posuze, Ante Bijek, stated, "What is there to say after an event like this? I simply cannot believe that such a tragedy occurred. This is immemorial." He later called for local businesses to close for the day out of respect for the victims. Prime Minister of the West Herzegovina canton, Zdenko Kosic, visibly distressed, stated, "This is a tragedy which will mark not only this year. I personally cannot imagine anything worse and more tragic than losing your loved ones, losing your children. Ours is to do what we can do, to express solidarity and condolences to the families who lost their children, to be together with them in our prayers and all other ways." The same day the bodies were discovered, several hundreds of citizens of Posuze gathered on the Croatian Veterans Square in the town to light candles and pay homage to the victims. The government of the West Herzegovina canton declared 3 days of mourning from 2 to the 4th of January. The Croat member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Željko Komšić, sent a telegraph, stating, "We were shaken by this sad news about the death of young people, which makes the tragedy even more painful. To the family and friends of the deceased, I send my deepest condolences and I sympathize with their pain. I am asking the Council of Ministers to declare a national day of mourning in the entire Bosnia and Herzegovina." President of the Croatian Democratic Union of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the former Croat member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dragan Kovic, stated, "It is difficult to find the right words of consolation after this immemorial tragedy and dark day. For the entire country, I am expressing my deepest condolences, while sincerely sympathizing with your pain and common prayer that their souls find peace. May they rest in peace." The Bosniak member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sefik Zafarovic, stated, I was deeply shaken by the news about the great tragedy near Posuze and the death of 8 young people. To the families and friends of deceased girls and boys, I send my most sincere condolences and I sympathize with their pain. Vice Chairman of the House of Representatives of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Denis Cvizdek, sent another telegraph, saying, I was heavily shaken by the awful tragedy that happened on the first day of the new year, in which 8 young people passed away. I express sincere condolences to the FA.